On this episode of Mind Your Business, our guest today is Kaela Servais, and she's the owner of Carefully Curated Gifts here in beautiful Seattle. So we're just going to go through as we normally do and talk about her business, her life, how she's managing all of that, and hopefully be able to help somebody with their own direction in their own business or plans to start a business. Okay,
Awesome.
sweet. So let's start with, where did you grow up, Kaela?
I grew up in Seattle area.
Yeah.
Born and raised here. I spent a year or so in California. We moved there. That's where my mom's from when I was little. Then moved back here, and then my parents divorced when I was in kindergarten. So I spent my time split between like the Issaquah, Sammamish area, which is like
Gotcha.
called the East Side. It's a suburb of Seattle
Yes.
for people who aren't in the area. The East Side.
Right.
And Auburn, which is like near here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So
Okay. So you've always been in the area, and then, of course, a little bit of Cali.
yeah, always
Right.
gotta love the Cali. It's very much like here, like Bay Area is very
Yeah.
much like Seattle. So I feel like I'm just this type of vibe, culture, flannel wearing,
Right.
beanie wearing, like
Is that the Pacific Northwest vibe? Is that what
Totally.
one would call that?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
yeah, it's so interesting now because everybody's moving in here for
Yeah.
tech. And so what Seattle is now is so it still has kind of the same vibe, just overall because it's so dark and cold. At a certain point, you can't wear a dress every day.
That's
People kind of
true.
have to resort to like wearing what we wear.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
But the professionalism I find in Seattle comes from like your work and what's inside rather than how you appear on the outside, more so than I'd say like other big
That's true.
metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
Like my mom growing up, she worked at Microsoft most of my life, and nobody wears slacks and a button up there. They show up in t-shirts and whatnot, but they put out the best material
Right.
and they get paid the big bucks. So it's like, oh, that's so cool
That's
to
right.
know it's what's inside and what you put out rather than how necessarily you show up.
I
But
love
now
that.
being a business owner, it's like, now how do you straddle that? Sometimes you do have to put on your best and show up
Right.
because if people are meeting you for the first time, you know how the first few seconds are
Oh,
everything.
gosh. That first impression, right?
Right.
Where you're like, I need to make them like me now, or any future of making them like me
Right.
is disadvantaged.
Right. I know they'll
Right.
like me once they start talking and we can connect,
Right.
but how do you even get in the room?
True.
Yeah.
True.
So, that to be
Yes.
said, that's Seattle. This is
That's right.
like French music,
Yes.
coffee in hand always.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. So, because you've been here and you've rotated within the sphere of this great Pacific Northwest, a big part of your brand is locally sourced goods,
Yeah.
gifts. So, talk to me more about how you've managed to basically connect that passion of this area with the vendors in your company.
I mean, it's a great question. I think it's kind of a two-parter. The first part is that I really wanted to help boost the economy in our local small business community because
Right.
we have so many huge platforms in Seattle, Microsoft, Costco,
Right.
Google, Amazon, they're all here.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people who are in business who make a lot of money and who are showcased a lot of times. But what about the smaller mom and pop businesses, the crafters, the makers?
Yeah.
They're not getting the same spotlight in our area. And so during COVID, when all these businesses were shutting down, I thought, what is a way? I had my own dreams of starting my own business, but how can I amplify the voices who are already gaining traction here, but maybe I have a way to amplify them in an area that they aren't already in.
Right.
And so to be able to use so many different products where that's not my specialty is creating it, but it's the making it look beautiful and the service aspect of providing gifts.
Right.
It was really cool to already like be on the backs of people who put in the groundwork in the areas that I think are really cool, but I mean, I don't have the expertise in.
Right.
So that's where my passion for helping from an economic standpoint
Yeah.
support community, but also like Seattle is so freaking rad.
They're a whole unique community, right?
You can tell like a Seattle person when you meet them, and Ozzy gives me the hardest time, my husband,
Yeah.
who you know.
Yeah, I know Ozzy.
He's from San Diego. He moved here like 7 years ago. And they'll be like, it's so funny if you ever see somebody from Seattle or just Washington in general on like a reality show or someone, you're like, oh my God, Seattle. You're automatically rooting for them. There's just like so much pride from growing up here, being here.
Yes.
We're all sad and depressed.
It is so rainy.
So
Oh
you have to
gosh.
hone in what you love about it, and you like
Yes.
get rooted in that.
Right.
And so I just wanted to show people maybe some of the great things that they might not know about Seattle because they have these generalized stereotypes if you're not from here,
Right.
of what makes us unique and beautiful. And there's so much art and culture and food, and aesthetics that come here that
Yeah.
I love to celebrate.
That's so cool. So, do you like do any pop-up shops in farmers markets or areas like that? Is that part of your business, or are you more so in-person online orders? What's the goal there? Or what have you
What's
done?
the okay?
There's two questions then,
Yeah.
right? So there is what is the first part instead of the goal? We'll go to the goal later. But the first part, which is the implementation.
Where am I?
Yeah.
Kind of where do I show up?
Yeah.
So we're going into year 3 in July of business. So it's been 2 years, 3 market seasons, if you will. Like
Okay.
for me, it would be the holidays would be when I would do markets. So when I started, much like I feel like I try and be transparent online. It's like you're just figuring out where you want to land.
Right.
What is your target demographic? And coming from I hadn't owned a business before. I wasn't in that world to know, do I want to just focus on client gifts? Do I want to open up a brick and mortar? There's so much possibility when you think of
Right.
gifting, that I tried it all. So when I first started, I went right into farmers markets.
Yeah.
And holiday was my first one, and it was like a huge success. People could come, buy gifts ready to go, or they could build their own gifts on the spot, which I love to do.
like that.
People are like, I love this, but like this product, but I don't know what I want something a little more. How can I make this into a gift? And then I
Right.
could show like, oh, this would pair with this. This is this, and to see people's face be like, how did you do that? It's like
Right.
something that sometimes comes so naturally to you to be able to see it face to face. Like you are making an impact, and there is a need for this.
Right.
Was a huge light bulb moment for me.
That's
So
cool.
I'm really glad I did that. And then last year I did something like 30 to 40 markets, and so we're in 2024 now, but in 2022, just because I was like, this is my first whole year in business. So I'm going to try
Right.
spring markets, summer, Valentine's Day, holiday markets, really see if there is a need or if this is something that can be sustainable. And I found
Right.
that it really like wasn't based on the time commitment of if it's outside, weather permitting in Washington. Is it
Mhm.
rainy? Is it cold? Does that bring high traffic there?
Right.
What cities and what locations bring the most people? I found that there's a couple cities specifically that where everybody supports small business, like Edmonds and Maple Valley, which are kind of like on the where Seattle and the East Side are. They're kind of on like the opposite sides.
That's right.
They love supporting local. They don't really have chain places in those towns.
I see.
So there's a lot more people that will show up to those
Oh, that's
markets
cool.
and support. But then I did, a ton of East Side events where I'm from, and it's a lot of because it's so inundated with tech.
Yes.
People want immediate gratification. So to show up somewhere, to peruse, to shop small, the artisan, I found it was more education based than people ready to support with their dollar, which is
Really?
really, which was like a really cool learning opportunity for me to help say why shop small, why would it help to not just click on Amazon and get things shipped to your door,
Right.
but there's power in making people feel appreciated and having that personal touch.
Yes.
So I love doing that, but maybe I don't necessarily need to have a pop-up market where I pay to be in those spaces,
Makes sense.
take 3 hours to set up, because I essentially have to set up a gift shop because it's not
Right.
just I'm selling one product. I have to bring
All of
100.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it was a lot of work, and I do have a toddler, and a family, and my husband works full time. So navigating that while also being somewhere that's not my home, I didn't know how I was going to set up
No
till
structure.
the day of. I
Right.
didn't write anything down. Car payment, like I know that what I'm going to make is beautiful, but it was those things like, aha, if you're going to be doing this, find the right market for you, be
Right.
able to market so people show up, and like have a streamlined system.
Mhm.
And because based on what I could do online, versus the time commitment and what I would make at the markets. I found I was like, this really isn't where my niche is. And these one-off gifts aren't the demographic that I'm going for. So that's
Okay.
kind of what steered me in 2023 towards client and corporate gifting, which is what I started with coming from real estate.
Okay.
And then I kind of shifted away from that to see, okay, is there storefront markets? Is this where I'll get more business? And while there was a need and I met a lot of great people, I found that that's, like I said, not where I want my energy to go.
Right.
So I decided in 2023, no markets except for I picked 3 holiday markets that I had been to before
Ooh.
or that I was friends with, like the owners. They wanted
Right.
me there. I had to be asked to go to them, so I wasn't
Right.
like pitching myself.
I see.
And it had to be indoors so that I knew, and not like a long time.
Yeah, no
So I wasn't
way.
freezing. I
Right.
knew none of my products would be ruined by
Right.
the elements, and that I could just enjoy myself. And I knew if nothing came of it, at least like I had a good time
Right.
and I was in a great environment. So this holiday season with the markets was so fun. And it just like was just like being with friends and just seeing what worked now that I've learned so much being away
Right.
from the markets. So
Right.
coming in with fresh perspective of tailoring it towards like the client corporate perspective
Right.
was really fascinating.
So when you say holiday markets, you mean like the end of year holiday markets,
Yeah. So like
right?
November, December, people come
Right.
to get gifts. So I did one at a winery that I love,
Okay.
and I had people coming back to that from the year before being like, I came just to see you.
Oh,
I saw your
wow,
name
that's
on
gotta
it.
feel
So to
good.
create that in-person
Yay.
experience, oh my gosh, was the best. I did the pop-up at my home for the first
Yes.
time, which you were at. I was
Yes.
so happy you were
That
there.
was so
That was a
good.
whirlwind, which I hadn't done before. I mean, like 50 people in my small house,
Right.
just figuring it out. But it was so fun, and I can't wait learning from that and
Yes.
shifting. And I'm hoping to do that Mother's Day
Right.
again, so maybe 2 a
Okay.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to talk about that.
That would be nice.
And then I did 2 in downtown Seattle at the Madison Center, which is where the Hulu headquarters is.
Oh,
So right
okay.
downtown, like beautiful, and it was just for their employees to come down. And this was my 3rd event with them. So while it was a smaller setup, there was only 3 vendors there. It was cool to just keep cultivating with them because
Yes.
they are one of my corporate clients as well.
Yes.
So just sowing the seeds that you might not necessarily sit in the shade of right now. Like it may not be like a huge money maker, but
Right.
if you keep sowing in where you want to be and you show up as your best self, I just feel like there's going to be so much more than just monetary
Right.
gain from doing that.
And as you build a business, you have to find things outside of monetary gain.
Yeah.
You will make money.
Right.
It will be less than you expected, sometimes more.
Yeah.
But if you were miserable making the money, that is a no-go.
Yeah.
You won't keep making the money
Totally.
regardless. Okay. So with these businesses that you're working with, do you have favorites yet? Like a law office that has a ton of clients and that they just always need to be shipping out stuff of thank you for closed cases and,
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Favorite. I mean, my heart is with real estate agents.
Ah, okay.
So that's before COVID, before 2020, before I was a mom. I was in real estate operations for 7 years.
Okay.
So I really understood the behind the scenes of their day-to-day operations, and I was doing their closing gifts. So I knew what they wanted, what they would give clients, and that's kind of where my idea for I loved doing that side of my business, and I didn't like the other back end stuff. So I took
Yeah.
what I loved and created a business out of it. So when I came in, it's like I know how to not sell, but I know how to market myself for them. I know my value in there, so I could really show up confident
Yeah.
and saying, "You need me. It's time for
Yes.
you to leverage out the time and energy you're taking doing this. And when it's not, you can't give your full brain space to it. Like, let me help you because I
Right.
really do understand what your clients want. You being the local expert in your area, and in a field of such saturation in Seattle area, there's so many
Real estate.
real estate agents.
Yeah.
So not only what sets you apart from the beginning, but how are you going to be remembered?
Right.
Because my whole thing is I want to help people build retention through intention.
Like that.
And
saying.
so thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's my heart is
Yeah.
through them. But it's a really volatile market. with
Right.
interest rates, with just the area that we're in, there's not enough inventory. And so I can't always just focus on that. So one of
Right.
the best things I ever did and how we met was joining the BNI of Kirkland
Yes.
chapter, which little old me, I never thought that I would be a fit for BNI. It seemed very structured. I didn't know, bankers and insurance agents and attorneys and financial planners. I mean, things that I had
Right.
never worked with. As like,
Right.
what value can not only I bring to them, because I still feel like I'm 18. Like,
Compared to them.
how do I know people that they would even want to work with? Like,
Right.
because in BNI, it's not only about what you can gain, but how you can serve other people.
Right.
And I fell in love with that idea, and I realized that we all have so much value.
Right.
And so in the last 2 months, I've started working with videographers, attorneys, everybody. And
Right.
it's been the biggest blessing because it's given me the confidence boost I need that being my authentic self is worthy of working with such high caliber
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And it's just confirmed that even more of, oh, there are things that you do, there's things that you do, there's things that I do that they will never understand, and they need our resources
Right.
and what we do. And likewise.
That's so funny.
So when you can come with that collaborative spirit, I found that that's where I want to be in. That's the kind of people that I want to work with.
Hmm.
And I've seen my business grow tenfold because of that.
That's so cool because as we're touching on the topic of BNI, I changed the way I dress just to go there because I'm like, okay, the way I want to dress is not going to be. You guys can't even look at me. You dress so nicely and you're in such crazy business.
The first
yes.
event, and you had the one earring and you had the it was like, it's the perfect balance because what sets you apart is it's not sloppy.
Right.
It's intentional but personalized.
Right.
It's you stand out in the crowd in a way that is authentically you, but also makes people take notice. And it's like, that's so cool. I feel like you've really found the balance of
And
that.
I'm glad you say that because that came from hours of YouTubing and looking at men. I was like, what are they wearing? And I don't know. I'm not looking at them intentionally, but now I am. And I'm like, okay, why do you put on white shoes with those blue jeans? Okay, because that's the look. Right. It's good. It's a good look.
But isn't it now that you're a part of it though, is that people aren't really dressing up super fancy. No. And that you think
it's as simple as it goes.
Yeah. Nick shows up with his paint splotch white shirt.
Oh gosh.
He's a painter. But you're like, I came in feeling like I had to look a certain way and be a certain way.
But we don't.
But you don't. You just have to show up. Who are you and what do you represent?
Right.
And then I obviously want to elevate a little bit. And it helps you kind of be that, okay, like, what are you and how can you say that? How can you show up in a way in 30 seconds for your commercial?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In your one-on-one when you only have an hour with someone who's never met you, who only kind of knows what you do, be real, but also it helps you, like I said, elevate in a way of how do I get to my point quicker? How do I figure out what they need before they even know they need it and help them see a certain way? And so it just helped me tweak it like that much.
Well, I want to dive into why, because I know why it's helped me.
How? Why?
And that's because before BNI, which forces you to talk about your business every time. I was not talking about my business all the time. If someone was like, what do you do? I'd be like, I do videography. And that was the answer. Now, when they're like, what do you do? And you have 30 seconds. That's not enough. And so now I've had to really practice, and every week I'm saying something different. And I'm like, why is that? Is it because I don't know what I do? Or is it because I want to be creative? I have to be honest with myself, right? Because I'm not being creative if I don't write a script. Right. There's nothing wrong with sticking to a structure of creativity that you've created for yourself. So I'm finding that I am going to need to get better at talking about my business, through the fact that I suck at talking about my business now. And I'm like, okay, I can see why this doesn't work. And I can see why this worked, because I now have people laughing, or I have people engaging. And when I get up there, people shift and look. When you stand up, people look, because we're going to say something interesting as newer members, of course, because there's a lot of older members that have been there like 10 years or 30 years. I'm like, what in the world? That's amazing. Right. So
there's some staying power.
Right. And we bring that kind of fresh, young and go-getter attitude, and we might not be ready for BNI per the paperwork version of it, but with the heart and intention, I believe we are.
Yeah.
So it's muddling through that that's been eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about you.
What is that though? Like I wasn't there yesterday, but I want to like, what did you say yesterday during your commercial?
Oh gosh, I slept on like for 3 days like a hear he. Yeah, I was like, I need to tell a story. And it was an idea of how people communicated back in the day. The king has decreed.
Oh.
And it would take months for the whole village to figure it out. But what if you had a video that you sent to everybody's phones and they all had it? That's what we have today. Give us a call. I'll take care of that for you. You don't have to go screaming at the top of the hills. So the idea was a story of a relatable problem that we've solved with technology and how I continue to make that useful to businesses, you know, and I'm like, every week, if I can find a cool story, I can make this work. Cause then there's freedom within my limits. You know what I mean? Right. And so that's what I did yesterday.
And how was the reception?
Oh, people laughed. I almost won the Purple Cow Award.
I'm surprised you did.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, you know, biased. Yeah. Under the table stuff. Yeah, I know you. You're pretty good.
This guy.
That guy. Yeah. No. And so I'm trying to be exactly what people think I am as well, and also surprise them. You know, I want to be funny, but a lot of times I go in there tired. And like, I don't have the energy for this. And then I see you get up and I'm like, okay, fine. I have the energy for this because I know you're tired. But here you are with your chirpy bird energy. And so I'm trying to negate my negative self-talk because a lot of it is just in my head. Because then you'll turn around and be like, you did so good. And I'm like, you didn't see me sweating and itching myself. And you're like, well, I did, but focus on that. It was the fact that you're doing it. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I look at me how people look at me? You know, that's an interesting thing.
It's what you said is like, it totally reminds me. I literally came from a meeting earlier today, and my friend said that this like it's profound. It's not profound, but it is. And she's like, you know, because we worry so much behind the scenes. We're sweating like, you have to give a presentation. It's 30 seconds. Like, what do we say? What's the right way to do this? That's gonna gain. Like, we're thinking, how is this going to affect 5 years down the line? I have to say the right thing right now. It's not like they haven't heard you before, or they don't have your information, but it's like, it's my job right now.
Right.
And there's this pressure, but it's like, and then we think we did bad. And she's like, well, I think it's two things of like when people say, oh, like, great job. And you're like, how? It's like they really like just don't care.
Right.
Or like they literally didn't see any difference. It was so nuanced that they wouldn't have recognized it.
Right.
And the thing was like not taking that people don't care as a bad thing.
Right.
Because we think, oh, people just don't care about us. It's not about us. It's that everybody is the main character of their show.
Yes.
And they're worried about their life. They don't have the time or energy to think about that 30 seconds and ruminate on it and make opinions based on it that they're going to think about. It's like, oh, wow, duh. I'm not that important in their life. I'm providing a service or a good that they're going to use, but it's not going to impact their life and have staying power in that way.
Right.
So when you think about it that way, it totally frees you up to get creative and to just be transparent and honest.
Yes.
And be like, this is what I am. And I really don't know how to say this in a good way. And I'll say that like.
Right.
And just like, let's be real, because we're all on the table. We all want business.
Right.
We all want to feel liked, trusted, and appreciated.
Yes.
And if we can all recognize we all want this and we all only kind of know what we're doing.
Right.
And we're figuring it out every day because we're real people.
Yeah.
That frees us all up to just be like, oh, I'm so glad you said that.
Right.
I'm so like, you're right. It's just a silly little game of life we're playing.
That's so true. And I love that, you know, I am not one that needs to be agreed with, but I love when I get those little moments of like, okay, you're not crazy. You are not the only one with thoughts like this, that you do have areas for improvement, but you're good as you are.
Right. That doesn't mean that you're bad at what you do.
Right. Okay. So where do you see Carefully Curated in 5 years? Like, because the whole thing for me now is I'm reading self-help books. They're like, what's your 5-year goal? And I'm like, what do you mean? What's tomorrow's plan?
Right?
for breakfast, you know, much less taxes and employees and what I want to be structuring my
Yeah.
business as. So, do you have any idea?
It's a great question, and I have so many questions of like, what books are you reading now? Because I almost went like before I started a business, I went like full. I only read self-help books, business development books because I knew I was going to make something of myself. I just didn't know what it was,
Right.
and so like I almost got too inundated where it stopped like the creative thought process of like what kind of life do I want to live? Not like
Right.
what kind of business do I want to have, but like
I see.
so when I come into my business, I do have goals, but
Mm-hmm.
they constantly change because I'm like, I just want how am I feeling right now? Because it's only me in my business. Am I
Right.
showing up tired? Am I showing up frustrated, not feeling creative? Well, then this is not the space right now. So what do I need to change? Because obviously the way that I think that I need to be leading business isn't whether it's for long term or today is
Right.
not where I need to be.
That
So
makes
how do I
sense.
shift it? So I really want to have more structured 5-year, 10-year plans, but every market that I did, every client that I have is a new learning opportunity of what I like and don't like.
Okay.
So right now my word for 2024 is leverage.
Yes.
So right now, my big focus is just leveraging out the things that bring the ick to me
Okay.
as far as business,
I see.
like taxes, like
The ick.
creating like CRMs, Excel spreadsheets, like tracking things. There are things that as
Right.
business owners you have to have.
Right.
But like if it's gonna take way more time for me to figure out how to do it well, then it's taking away from the parts that I soar at.
Right.
So I want to just my goal, I don't know the length of time it's gonna
There
take,
we go.
but it's just to feel like radiant joy in everything that I do as far
Ah,
as work. And
okay.
if it's not, then I need to get rid of it or I need to leverage it.
I love that.
So I'd love to have by the end of the year, I'd love to have a few employees to help me with the just streamlining and automation of the workflow so that
Yeah.
I'm not the only one in the business doing, I mean, one client for the holidays can have 300 gifts of the same type. So
Right.
it's like I don't need to make all 300 of those if they're the same. I should have somebody who I can teach them how to do it and then they get it done.
Right.
And I'd love to work with really influential people in the Washington area, and even potentially, I'd love to franchise out to different states
Yes.
because I want to be I am right now the local expert as far as gifting Washington
Yeah.
curated client and corporate gifts. And it feels really weird to say that, but it's
Love
like
that.
I am becoming known as that
Right.
because there's other businesses who do what I do in the area, but they aren't focused in on that at the level and at the aesthetic that I am creating
Performing
and
at. Yeah.
cultivating. So how can I do that in Arizona? How can I do that in California? Because I'm
Yay.
already thinking of that, but I'm like, folks, stay in your lane.
Right.
Get really, really, really good. Get your 10,000 hours in right now, just in Washington.
Right.
So just learning, growing, meeting more people, meeting more brands in the area. I love to network, so just keep meeting people.
Right.
I don't have an advertising budget because I'd rather take that money and be around people and go to different workshops and be in different networking groups and have it be authentic
Right.
because I am carefully curated.
I love that.
What they are proud of or excited
Right.
about is huge.
And that's, yeah, I mean, that's all I can do. Yeah.
I
And
didn't
so,
know about you that you were like the star pupil. I think it's so
oh,
funny, like when it comes to like school,
yeah.
because it is so far removed, but it is like woven into who
Yes.
we are, is how our view of education and school. And I was actually the opposite.
Really?
I was like the bottom 10 in my class of
No.
400, 500 people.
What?
But it's because like I did not believe, well, undiagnosed ADHD, but like it was because I was already working with Tony Robbins by the time I was 12. Like I was already flying around the country, like teaching leadership seminars. So the fact that I had to go back and learn geometry, I was like, this is pointless. I was the one that wasn't like getting in trouble ever. I wasn't ever a bad kid. I'm such a rule follower.
Right.
But when it came to school, if I didn't understand it or didn't see, I was already thinking ahead, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm not going to go to college. First of all, like, I don't have a trust fund set aside for me to
Right.
go to college. And then I was thinking about, I just had really influential people in my life from a young age say, what's the kind of life that you want to live, and work backwards. And for me,
Nice.
college wasn't a part of that.
Right.
So I tried to fit into it for a while of I not even I need to get good grades. So I guess I have to go to this college and follow this plan and then work backwards. And then when that wasn't showing up, it was really hard to be in a system where it was like you have to be this way. But the world, once you get out into the world, nobody tells you that that's not how life is. Nobody's asking for your diploma.
Right.
Did you pass? Like, how many times at a job someone say, what was your GPA in high school?
Right.
It's like, okay, we'll pass the basics. And of course, if you're going to be a doctor, I hope you go into the best school. And there's certain, for me, there's a certain jobs where it's like, okay, I understand the need to push in this field.
Right.
But I think one of the best blessings that I ever received was not being that I had to fit into this. I had to get the best grades. I had to be the star. It was, what are you passionate about, Kaela? What sets your soul on fire? Even to be asked that at like 8. And then let's get you into those programs. Let's get you into those summer workshops. Let's take the week off of school so that you can go to New Jersey and be in a leadership seminar with a bunch of other teenagers from around the world and workshop different business ideas.
You knew everything.
So it's like, it wasn't, I was seen as a bad student or that I wouldn't go far, but in my mind, I knew I'm creating something that 20 years down the line, people are going to wish they had this knowledge. Wow. So it's really cool to be able to use that now and figure out, oh, I have it within me still. It's just now putting it into action, the things that were dormant or we're told weren't like worth focusing on at that age.
Right.
And so now having a daughter, it's so weird to be in that space where it's like, I want you to do your homework, please. Or like, when but I didn't do it. So I'm not asking you to do. It's so wild. So it's like the fact that she enjoys and is proud of that for you, like that is really cool. I hope that is something that she is really loving to do and wants to make something of herself for her. Right. Not just you.
Yes.
And so if you're seeing that, like that's incredible that they're different and they love different things and that you're able to amplify that voice. I think that was the best gift my mom ever gave to me was not pushing a certain curriculum or thing that I have to do. She did make me take Japanese for 3 years because she wanted me to be in international business. And that was like so stressful for me.
What?
But so now I can speak Japanese. I've never used it.
Right.
But I have this.
It comes and goes.
Outside of that, it was just like,
nice.
Yeah, what not who do you want to be?
Right.
Not what do you want to do?
Right.
And so I think the most powerful thing that we can give like the youth.
I love that.
Is that money-making job that you want, or like to go to, what are your days going to look like? What's your marriage going to look like? What are your kids going to know their dad, or is he going to be working 100 hours a week? Like, and Ozzy and I were like, before we had kids, before we got married, we were asking those questions, and it's totally, that's why I've been able to feel like do what I've done before 30.
Right.
Yeah.
And building that still.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I can imagine that would be tough. And all I would say is so long as she has what she needs, like you had what you need, you won't be too hard on her and she'll get what she needs done, Because I'm like, I'll homeschool my kids if it gets crazy with requirements from school. Because nowadays, I mean, math is something else. Math has letters in it and it has processes where you can't pass the test unless you do it the way they want you to do it. And I'm like, no way. If I know how to do this, it's done. Yeah. Yeah, I answered the question, but there's a lot of show your work the way we showed you how to do the work. And I'm like, nuh-uh.
How is this actually helping you?
Right.
How is this actually, tell me why.
Right.
And if you can't, or if you're not allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Then you have to look at like, what is the whole point of this?
Right.
What? The system, not to be like, I don't think anything's corrupt, but it's just like, why are we not allowed to ask the questions of long term, what is this for?
Yes.
How is this going to help me? If it's not, find a different solution.
Right.
So we put our daughter in Montessori school.
Nice.
And it goes through middle school. So I just love that because she's a self-starter and she can find what she's passionate about. She's not going to be told what she needs to do.
Good. So you're going to make those sacrifices now.
Yeah.
Right.
Then, it costs money. So it's like, okay, how do I become successful in my own right, and still following that of like, what sets my soul on fire? What am I passionate about? Follow that and the money will follow.
Right.
Truly.
Right.
So just be an example.
Right. Okay. So now that we are building processes for
Yeah.
our lives and our businesses, part of that is system education might not be the solution, but we do have to self-educate. So books and courses and things, right?
Yes.
So
much to learn.
one of the books that I remember, The Compound Effect, I can't remember his name.
Darren Hardy?
Darren Hardy. You mentioned it in the BNI group. You said it changed your life. And I was like, well, she seems like she's nuts like I am. This might help me. And it is completely what I needed at the time.
Wow.
Because the compound effect is the idea of the snowball effect. The more you do something, the more you work on it, the more time you put into it, the more return you get out of it.
Yeah.
And that goes for everything. So the more resentment you put in, the more, ungratefulness you put in, the more jealousy you put in, the bigger your problems become over time.
Yeah.
And the more you work on those things, and, like a person who starts, instead of changing their entire diet tomorrow to salad and, nuts and grows a beak, they literally just say, you know what, I'm just going to start eating low sodium foods.
Yeah.
And so my hot dog is still enjoyed, but it's not as high in sodium and the ketchup. And then from there, that small impact goes to, you don't even feel like having greasy fries anymore.
Yep.
And that then slowly turns into, maybe I should also pair this with working out. And then not every day, but every now and then I'm just going to go on the treadmill. I'm going to do this. And these things really compound. And as a millennial who's also pre-millennial in my technology experience, I remember when we didn't have phones. I remember some of this stuff. So I want to plant something and see it grow tomorrow. I'm like, tree, appear.
Yeah.
I have put in work. I have bought planter. I have made, show me money now. And finding that balance between, okay, so how long does this really take? And then you see on there, 8 to 12 weeks to grow your tomato plant. But based on where you live, it took you 6 to 12 months. You would have given up. But that's the idea, is don't quit before you get there, because literally it's right in front of you if you keep going, but the perseverance is the tough part. So that is my take on the book.
Yeah.
How has the compound effect affected you, and what did you take away from that?
Well, I love that
Okay.
you already took that and ran with it, and it is so true. It's the little things that you do, and we know that. We hear that all the time. It's like, you have to build the habit, you have to work the muscle, but when you really lay it out of like, it's not building the habit of jumping in and then you have to work at doing that every day. It's literally start small and then just do the small thing again tomorrow.
Yes.
Just keep doing that one thing, and it's amazing, and then you don't even have to think about it, and then you can start doing another thing.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the biggest thing it did for me too, is removing the need for instant gratification in things that you want long-term success in. There's some things where it does, I do want my package to get there tomorrow because I need that to do it. I understand that, but it's like, if I want this type of dynamic in my marriage, if I want this type of dynamic in how I view working out or fitness or public speaking, it's what can I do every day to just move the needle that much?
1%.
And I read that when I was, 20.
What are you now, 21? Well, you look young. Yeah.
Almost 10 years ago.
What?
And when other people were in college, that's what I was doing. That's what I was reading these books.
Nice.
And I didn't quite know how I was going to apply it then, but I'm so happy that I retained the information, because in moments that are hard, it's those voices. It's more in the moments of deep despair and what am I doing with my life, not even just in business, but it's, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Was it?
It was 2 days.
We read the textbook in a day.
But just that reminder. And I mean, if Ozzy was here, I feel like we've been in this together for most of my adult life. We've been together, and so we've learned a lot of this stuff together.
Right.
And so when I think about how that much that book has affected me. We read it at the same time, and watching how he's applied it in his corporate job. I mean, he
Yeah.
runs the Washington State Ferries.
Oh, yeah. I need to talk to him about that.
So seeing how he's applied the compound effect in, you can't change the whole system needs to be changed.
Right.
But you can't change it overnight because it involves people, it involves money, it involves different levels and tiers of employees. It's what can I work on to just today? If I
Right.
can only do this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then keep working on that tomorrow. And just seeing his resiliency with that has been
That's
amazing. When we first started dating, and we got engaged in like 4 months. So we we went in hard. He had never read a self-help book in his life
Right.
before we met. And I gave him the Compound Effect. It was his very first book
Cool.
to read outside of, a history book.
Yeah.
And what he read was, I don't know if you remember this, but it was how you can use a compound effect in your relationship is how to learn how to compliment or to find the good in people.
Oh, yeah.
So the first day he read it, they said, okay, write down one thing that your partner did today or one thing that you are grateful for in them. And he didn't tell me. And he did this he started a journal, and he gave it to me a year after. Every single day there is an entry of Kaela did this today. And
That's
it was
cool.
I really appreciated this about her, or she has this type of spirit. And so it was just the most generous and overwhelming gift to receive of wow, you've been taking notice in this. But it also was a practice and building a habit every day to find the good in each other and in our dynamic, even when life is stressful.
Beautiful.
So
that is
I was that was such a good application of the book that showed me it's not just black and white building a habit of how you can get better, but it's how you can show up for other people better.
That's amazing. Well, I need to talk to Ozzy because I also started this journal and I've written one entry. And then from there, I just fuck that. I'm more of a tell it to your face kind of guy.
So you
know what I mean? And I'm
real nice.
I'm going to just take what I learned and apply it, but I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And so now I'm I'll just film a video every day. Maybe that's what I want to do. So I think that might be a more filling.
But that's the whole point. This what you want.
This is my 1% toward that. And it's by talking to you about it. So there's some accountability. Because now, when you ask me about it, I'm like, what are you talking about? You'd be like, pull that shit up. You know what I mean? There it is. Right. So I would like to really apply more of that to my business because a lot of times I want everything now.
Yeah.
Because I've built everything now. But just because you've built it, they will not come. It's a lie. I know that it's quoted all the time, but you have to market it. You have to maintain it. And you have to keep it going.
Right.
And you have to plan on it failing sometimes. This idea that I've built it, I can go on vacation now, is one that I share because I'm a new business owner. And so I'm I don't see a vacation coming, even if I can take one, because why would I want to? I'm building something I love. And so it's like the gym. I don't like the gym at all. I think the gym is work. But I've changed my mindset on the gym as a whole to help with that. And I go, just like work, doing things I don't like to do, the gym helps me in ways that I can't put a monetary value on from my energy level as a super stoner kind of guy, where I'm oh yeah, chemically just mess me up so I can just relax.
Yep.
I love that feeling. And I like to think that I can function in that, but that's from a previous life of a more active job where you could you're awake because you're moving boxes.
Yeah. And then you tune out.
Yes.
Yeah.
You tune out, you become robotic autopilot. That does not happen when you're on Excel in your email doing spreadsheets. And I'm a creative now on the computer looking at screens and I'm I need to change things, about that. So I'm going through my own little shift and I appreciate you coming so much because I think this Mind Your Business was an idea for me to share with other business owners my struggles and learn from theirs. And so I hope that somebody then learns from ours as a collective, and continue to cultivate that. So if you I want to play around with a call to action. Basically, what do we want people to do with the information they've listened to today? Like, because here's a problem I've had. I watch 16 YouTube videos on productivity and how to light and how to take notes. And if I could tell you which one of those I remember or what I applied out of any of them, it'd be nothing because I just consumed information.
Right.
So I don't want people just watching the next episode and the next episode and applying nothing that doesn't help them. Right. So I'm thinking something along the lines of like, and here's the trouble. I don't know who my audience is yet. I don't know who's watching. And so these are the first few
Yep.
little bits. And so maybe I should wait for that to determine what the call to
No,
action,
I
right?
don't think that that's maybe.
Right?
I don't think that, not I don't think. I believe that the people that you're going to bring here and the authentic conversation is going to bring something to anybody who's listening.
Okay.
So from what I'm hearing you say is you want to know, like, what is the call to action? What can people take away of, like, something to think about to implement in their own life?
Right.
That would actually bring meaning and maybe a new shift in perspective.
Right.
That they wouldn't get just staying in their lane, focusing on, right, you're watching productivity, you're watching how could I edit this the best, how can I do
Right.
this, and for me it's like, what product should I carry? So if I'm focusing on that to get my business better, I'm not seeing the same stuff
Right.
that you are focusing on.
Right.
So what perspective can you bring to the table that somebody watching would be like, I didn't think of it that way, how can I implement that in my life?
Right.
So like from what I'm understanding, you asked me, the thing that I would say to people is, instead of focusing on like what you need to do in your business, it's literally sit down and write out,
there we go.
What is the life that you want to live? How do you want to live? Because that's a lot of what we talked about is what kind of, do you want to be married, or what does your family life look like?
Right.
Are you traveling where, so like your kids aren't in school? Okay, well then you're going to need a homeschool, or you're going to need to make enough money to like bring somebody in.
Right.
Are you vacationing? Are you waking up and having coffee and having a few hours before you have to be on to center yourself? Or do you like to go in and get a workout in? Like, well, then you need to say, okay, I need to focus on time blocking.
Right.
Not what I think I should be doing in the next step up to get better. So it's just like working backwards instead, because we can get so focused on our task list of what we need to learn and what we need to do gets so long that we forget that we still have to live our life and hopefully have some semblance of joy and balance, or at least like saying, if we, 'cause tomorrow's not promised, if this was our last day, like, were we living the kind of life that we were proud of?
Yeah, that's as factual as it gets. Mic drop. You've heard it here. Everyone needs to send in screenshots of their worksheet of the life they want to live.
Like, what if that was another business venture we had where we had to write this down? Because we don't get asked that. I see the kids, that hold up the first day of school sign, and I love them. And it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And it's like, well, they haven't lived any, like I love that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But instead, it's like, this is like the kind of life that I want to live when I grow up. I want to be able to do these things.
That would be better than firemen.
Then they could know what kind of job field to go into.
Yes.
And school doesn't focus on that.
That's so true. Do you want to be a fireman? You don't even like waking up early.
Do you know what that looks like? Do
right.
You know what the day looks like?
Right.
Do you know how much money? So that means that you'll have this money to set aside, but you won't have the time to do this. Or maybe you do like that. Right. But you don't know sometimes until you've invested in the school or invested in the curriculum, and then you find out what the life's like.
So chase it now. Do the research now.
Just get congruent with what you want your 24 hours a day to look like, and then figure out what
fits into that.
Yeah, what you have to do that.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I love this so much. I'm going to cry one of these days. I'm going to make it happen. I'm not a crier kind of person, but I do get emotional, and I've worked very hard on bottling things, because
you could do a whole series.
Oh man, that'll be fun. So even if I don't seem very emotional, I am emotional right now, and it's a good way, and it's in a way that I hope that someday I can tell better stories as I release emotion, because I feel like that's part of my problem.
Mm.
Is it as a new creative now? Well, I've always been a creative. I just
Yeah.
went to labor work, and then now I'm back in creative work, and I'm like, I've shut down feelings for so long because they don't move boxes,
You
you
have
know.
to.
But
It's
feelings
slow. Yeah.
make me money now, and I'm like, fuck. I've looked so down on weakness and, you know, shame and
Mm-hmm.
depression and my own mental state that I'm like, you can't just go toughen up, drink some coffee, kick yourself in the nuts and figure it out. You know,
Right.
like that's not going to work every time. So I'm going to explore my own ways of getting the emotions out and expressing myself in ways that seem and feel more authentic to me, you know, because I don't even know what authentic to me even means anymore, as I've put on the persona
Yeah.
that, like, without even my Jamaican accent, you know, like I'm like, what?
You have an accent?
I can have
Oh,
an
okay.
accent. This has been the persona that has kept me alive, is the one that doesn't ask too many questions. You know, you get what you get. Very seemingly nice guy. There's nothing else to it. He's just nice, you know. But I'm like,
You got a story.
I have many stories,
You have
you
many
know.
stories.
Yeah, and so I
Hmm.
appreciate you helping me kind of get out of my comfort zone and share some things. And I think as I do this more, the camera will just capture
Yeah.
things, and I'll just go, oh, shit, okay, that's me as it is
Yeah.
right there, you know, because I'm usually behind the lens. I want to be in front of it more and more.
Yeah.
So
I'm so proud of you. It's so cool that you're doing this and that you're just trying.
right,
You're just putting, it's the compound effect, literally, in
Right.
motion. And,
right,
but what you said is really powerful because art is emotion, right?
Yes.
If you're creating art, you
yes,
have to be able to relate or know how to capture it.
right,
But, and you know, even when you get down to the root of your feelings, maybe crying isn't even the most authentic.
right,
Right. So it's like then you're
Facts.
swinging the opposite way of
Right.
like now you're forcing yourself to feel this in a way that you think is going to garner the most
right,
understanding.
and
in
that's
it.
not
But
good either.
it's when you're aligned with actually what you've been through, what you're going through, and how you're like tapped into how you're feeling. However that shows up,
Right,
but when you feel like the most congruent, it's going to translate.
that's right.
So
I like that. And there's some things you can't plan. I like that.
what can you plan?
Right.
I mean, geez.
30 minutes from now, I don't even know what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
And it's a humbling feeling. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to just continually stay humble.
Right.
Once you think you know everything,
Fuck.
mm-mm,
You start to fall apart.
mm-mm.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. This has been awesome.
You too. Seriously. And I don't know when to end. So see y'all later.